I really love street photography. The only thing is, you have to deal with people. In this video, I'm going to offer you 3 techniques or approaches for dealing with people as you take street photos. So which approach you will pick will depend on a couple things. First, your mood, and second, your photographic objective. Let's break these down. You'll be able to match a strategy as to how you feel on a given day. You should ask yourself, what are my objectives as a street or travel photographer? Let's look at some examples. Maybe you want to capture reality at a specific point in time. This is a huge part of street photography, documenting a place and time, or trying to show its essence or character. Here's a different objective. Maybe you want to reveal a truth about the human condition, or about society, or even a specific person. Another objective would be to show some sort of interesting contrast or comparison, or some sort of visual trick. A fourth objective might be to tell a story about a particular place, or a person. This could be best done through sustained contact with the subject or with a particular place. You might want to hang around, for example, on a street corner or a bar or hotel lobby. And of course, this is usually done through a series of photos and not just one. A fifth or perhaps final objective of street photography would be to create something aesthetically pleasing to the eye, something artistic rather than just journalistic. These are all valid objectives, and I'm not saying one is better than the other. In fact, often when we go out and photograph on the street, we pursue many of these objectives at the same time. We might go out and document something, or see a beautiful, intriguing scene that reveals something interesting about people, or we see a story unfold that we weren't expecting, so we go out and follow it. So the strategies I'm now going to offer you fit some of these objectives better than others. What you pick will depend on what you're trying to do and maybe what sort of mood you're in. The first strategy in dealing with people is to not deal with them at all. I'm not advising not to photograph people, I'm just saying keep it candid. Don't interact with people if you can avoid it. Be as discreet and as invisible as possible. In this video, I discuss ways to be discreet and to stay candid, and which kind of camera you might want to consider using. You can maintain distance from your subject by shooting with a telephoto lens, but such lenses tend to be big, so it's hard to stay discreet if through the day you're constantly whipping out your long, hard lens. Other techniques for not dealing with people would be to shoot quickly, or perhaps from the hip, or just not even look at your camera screen at all. Just press the shutter when someone walks by. It's going to require a bit of cropping in post-production, and you'll probably have a high miss rate, meaning most of your shots suck. But this is one way to get relatively close to people without necessarily dealing with them. And some days, when I really don't feel like interacting with people, I'll use this approach. So looking back at our objectives, this strategy is especially good for documenting moments in time. It may also work for telling a story, but only if that story is brief and requires just a few shots. So, what are the advantages and disadvantages of using this strategy? The advantages are that you'll record candid and authentic moments. It's fast and easy. It requires a lower level of energy and engagement, and it's good for introverts. Because it's fast, you can cover a lot of ground. Let's say you only have one day in a city. Do you really want to spend a lot of time conversing with people, or would you rather walk around and see more things? The disadvantages are, it's harder to go deep and tell a story without a subject's cooperation, and you'll have a higher rate of missed shots. Now let's look at a second strategy for dealing with people, and that would be asking permission to take their picture. In this scenario, you might see someone who interests you for whatever reason. It may be the way they're dressed, it may be a particular article of clothing they're wearing, or maybe the way they're wearing their hair. It could be a physical feature like a face, a smile, their eyes, or even their body. It may be the way that they're carrying themselves or behaving. My advice here is simple. Approach them with a smile, politely explain what you're doing, and ask if you can take a quick photo of them. Offer to show them the photo, or at least offer to email them a copy. They may be suspicious of why you're asking them, so a way to break the ice might be to have a reason ready to offer right offhand. For example, you could say, "Hey, I really like your hat." You can try and avoid physical traits that might make them uncomfortable or think that you have an ulterior motive. Just use your common sense, but by all means keep it positive. Another piece of advice here is to be prepared if someone says no. Don't pressure them, just say thanks and move on. And don't take their no response as a personal rejection. As long as you're polite, you can be pretty sure that a no response has nothing to do with you. It may simply reflect how they're feeling or perhaps their culture. In North America, South America, Europe, and much of Asia, especially Japan, I found that the yes rate is relatively high. But in much of Africa and the Middle East, and that includes North Africa and below the Sahara, The no rate is relatively high. I think this is for a few different reasons. In many traditional societies, people are suspicious about being photographed, believing that you're stealing their soul. Also, many women in traditional societies don't like being photographed, and the men don't like foreigners coming in and photographing what they view as their women. I live in Senegal, and here there's a lot of suspicion that photos of people are being sold for profit with none of the proceeds going to them, so they view it as a form of exploitation. So the advantages of asking people for permission are huge. Here's your chance to take an up-close and intimate portrait of somebody. There's also a chance to develop a story about them or their work. Here's an example of a few shots I took of people working in a factory in Istanbul, Turkey. I couldn't have done this, of course, without their close cooperation. Here's another example going way back in time. In the old film days, I was on the famous Santa Monica Pier and wanted to do a series of photos of people who were just visiting the pier for whatever reason. So, as you can see here, I asked them for their cooperation, at least in most cases. So what are the disadvantages of asking for permission? Well, first, you're not going to get a candid shot. At least to some extent, everything that follows from your question is going to be impacted in some way by your presence. Secondly, just asking for permission, as we all know, takes some energy and courage. It's time consuming. Sometimes you have to start a whole conversation first before you can snap the photo. And of course, they may ask you for money. So this leads into the third strategy of dealing with people on the street. Before I go into that third strategy though, I want to talk a little bit more about the channel. As you might see, this channel is still pretty small, and I have this dream about growing the channel big.
If you subscribe to my channel, I promise you useful videos for real people. I promise you an unlimited supply of free and uninspired film. I promise you free tuition at a photography school of your choice. I promise you peace on earth and free camera straps.
So as I was saying, there's a third strategy, and that's to offer to pay somebody to take their photo. So there are a couple of ethical issues here. Should we pay a subject for their brief time and agreement to serve as a subject? What if we don't offer to pay but they ask for or demand payment anyway? If I ask somebody for permission to take their photo and they appear in need of financial assistance, I may offer them a little money. Similarly, if they ask for assistance after I take the photo, I'll give them some money. However, if they demand money before I take the photo, and especially if they're aggressive about it, I'm more likely to say no thanks, it's okay, and just move on without taking the photo. Of course, I don't want them to feel exploited, but I also don't want to feel as if I'm entering a business agreement each time I take a photo of somebody. And nor do I want them to see somebody with a camera in their hand and immediately start thinking money. Another instance in which I might offer money or give money if asked is if I'm interrupting someone engaged in commercial activities in order to photograph them. For example, this rule would apply to people in market stalls, small shopkeepers, artists, or people hustling for income out on the street. I feel that giving money in this instance is justified because I'm basically interrupting somebody's work. In most instances, these people haven't asked me for money beforehand, and in many instances, if I offer a small token of appreciation, they politely decline. They don't want our interaction to be about money. So when I do offer to give them something, I do it in a quiet, respectful, and discreet sort of way. How much money to offer? This really depends on you. For example, if I'm going to offer a guy selling soda on the street something here in Senegal, I'll offer the price of a drink or two for a minute of his time. But it's really up to you to determine what feels right. In all instances, I offer to show the photo to them and ask them if they have an email or WhatsApp so I can send them the photo. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of offering payment? Well, the advantages are you're paying someone for their time, and I feel that that's fair exchange. Another advantage is that you're helping them out, especially good if they need the help. And finally, you're gaining access to and being in a better position to tell that person's story. The disadvantages are pretty similar to those of just asking for permission without money. It's harder to get truly candid shots. And you're monetizing a process, thereby opening yourself up to negotiation. To conclude, I'm not going to say that one strategy is better than the other. It really just depends. Like so much else in photography and life in general, it's situational. The two criteria I use when choosing among these strategies is, first, what is my goal in taking the picture? And the second is, well, what is my mood? Like many people, some days I'm in the mood to interact with people, and other days I am not. The good news is that photography can accommodate people in both types of moods. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.
Ask not what this channel can do for you, but what you can do for this channel. Thank you very much.